Hello and welcome to Bible FPL, a review of Game Week 22, a look ahead to Game Week 23. It was a fairly sort of average game week, I think, for a lot of people. There wasn't loads and loads of points knocking around. There was a bit of frustration, I think, for people this week. And I think, lo and behold, I think most people have probably stayed at a similar rank. Do comment if you smashed it. I'd love to hear how you smashed it because I don't think there was loads of ways of smashing it this week. 41 points on the Bible FPL team. In the end, wasn't terrible. Like I brought in Shalabar, who did really nicely. Enzo got the assist, which was nice. Gabriel timber cleaners, he take all day long, and that was about it really. The Semenyo hit didn't quite pay off. However, next week home to Wolves, he got a full rest tonight in the Champions League as I'm recording this. It could still come good. It could still look all right, the hit that we've taken. And actually, the whole title of this video is around releasing the shackles in FPL. And I think I'm going to talk a little bit sort of in a minute about sort of that balance between like when to take hits and when to have fun, when to play it a little bit more conservatively. But I suppose you don't want FPL to control you. You want to be controlling FPL in a way that you enjoy it, basically, and you make decisions freely from a place of enjoyment, but also calculated enough to a point where you're aware of your emotions and yourself and what's going to annoy you to the point where you don't completely wreck your weekend. If you're familiar with this series, I always do a short Bible talk as part of the videos. If you're new, basically I've put together a team. So this Bible FPL team is full of players who I think would be happy enough to be in the series, are either Christian or they're open enough to faith from what I've seen online. And we use some of their names from to inspire Bible passages in relation to return times. There weren't loads of returns to work from this week, and unfortunately, a Patrick Dorgy was trapped on the bench with 15. So let's at least use him for some good, and we're going to use him for the Bible passage. So Patrick is our pool representative, PA for Patrick, PA for Paul. It's the closest we could get, and he assisted Cunha in the 76th minute. And one of the books that Paul wrote was Romans. So we're actually going to turn to Romans 7, verse 6, in relation to the goal time, in relation to the player's name, etc. And it says this, it says, "But now, by dying to what once bound us, we have been released from the law so that we now serve in a new way by the Spirit and not in the old way of the written code." Now, in an absolute nutshell, this is basically saying that Christians, when they put their faith in Jesus, become released by the Holy Spirit to live for God from a place of like God changing their heart to want to follow Him and to want to love people and want to love God, rather than from a place of like legalism and obligation, which would perhaps was happening a little bit more in the Old Testament and before Jesus came, and some of the Pharisees who were preaching things. Not necessarily all those things were bad, but it was from a place of like, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. It was often more from a place of like, it felt like a chore rather than God releasing you to actually want to live for Him and serve Him because, yeah, He loves you and you your heart's been changed to want to give something back, and it's just from a place of complete release. Whereas, yeah, at times I think when if religion's followed too legalistically, it can become something that you're completely bound by and you're shackled by essentially, and that's kind of where the FPL link comes in, where I think a lot of us on FPL can feel completely shackled and bound by FPL at times, particularly when it comes to like trying to play FPL in a sort of like perfectly strategic way and maybe following what the content creators say and stuff when it comes to like not taking hits. I feel like I've been through a journey of there was a season where I'm actually my best season rank wise was where I just took hits almost every week and I had fun and I was bringing in players for hits where I was like, I think these are the best players this week. It wasn't like crazy hits, but it was like, okay, these players are mostly fine, but there's a few that are like, I really want Bruno Fernandes this week and I really want him this week. So I'm going to have to take a -4 or a -8 to get them. And I'd do it. And quite often it would go well and I'd pay off the hit and I might win. Other weeks it might not go quite as well, but I played more freely with the shackles off. And then in more recent seasons, I've probably kind of been more locked into a shackle form way of playing where I'm like, I can't take a hit, like I can never take a hit. But then that has its own issues where you're like bound to the game, you're bound to your own rules for the game. You then aren't enjoying it as much. But then on the flip side, um, when I've sort of like, I suppose, not played a game that's overly sensible, it's a bit rash in a season where I know sort of, I don't know, I know myself, my mental state. I know I've realised that actually there's times where I suppose I've tried to like play a really like outrageous hit taking game. Oh, it's going to be really fun. But then I've realized actually it's even more painful when you see someone return that you've subbed out who wasn't even that bad an option. Like it's weighing it all up essentially is what I'm trying to say. But I feel like I want to encourage you all, wherever you're at of FPL and how you enjoy it, like get that balance between don't be shackled by the game where you're so bound from it, you're terrified to make a mistake. Because at that point, I suppose you've made it a bit of an idol in your life. And that's what the Bible talks about things in our lives that actually can completely rob our joy because they become so fixating and so like overtaking. And it's like everything's on this result that actually your whole life becomes burdened by it. And then the highs you enjoy a little bit, but you often just more affected by the lows, and that's been my story, I think, in recent seasons. And this season's, I've come to a slightly better balance of things. And like this post here that was on Twitter by Abu Bakar, like nothing against the chap whatsoever, but I just watched this video. If you want to see it on Twitter, go and check it out. But he basically had Tavernier as fancy team, and he showed us a video of his celebration to the goal, and there was a lot of comments around it because you could just see like the level of how like much it meant to him, and it was almost a celebration of like sheer relief and like I needed that desperately. Like it was from a place of like if Tavernier missed that penalty and he got minus points for Tavernier, like his whole evening would have been ruined. Like you could see the reaction of relief when Tavernier scored. It was like that was either a moment of thank goodness for that, like I'm so relieved, compared to like this would have completely depressed me. And I'm not judging him at all because even at the weekend myself, I made a last second transfer to bring in Declan Rice for Cunha after hearing that Cunha was going to be benched. And when I saw Cunha was benched, like I felt quite liberated in my decision. I was like, oh, that was the logical decision. Like, right, Cunha was benched. I've got Rice in for a game against Forest, like happy days. And I was watching the United game with my daughter, and yeah, I saw Cunha come off the bench and get an assist, and it was painful. I was like, oh man, like I was literally seconds away from sticking to plan. And it bothered me. And then I saw Cunha get a second assist. And at the time, I looked at the VAR and I thought, like, the first replay, and I was like, he's onside, like, the goal's given. And I basically turned the telly off. I was, like, so cheesed off. I was like, and when I looked in the Rice transfer, it was actually gone 11. So I shouldn't even have been allowed to have brought it through. And I was like, on another day, I'd have been locked out of it anyway. And I would have stuck to the plan. And, I'd have got two Cunha assists and a bonus point. And yeah, I turned the TV off because, like, similar to Abby Bakar, like, I got too invested in this sort of outcome of my transfer as the be all and end all in terms of what happens and if it goes well or not. And yeah, it was just it was an area of reflection in terms of I've taken this too seriously. Like, I've let this affect me too much. It's affected time with my family a little bit. Like, it's funny because later in the day I found out, oh, the Cunha second assist was actually disallowed, and he only ended up with 4 points, which was a lot easier to kind of cope with. But even then, it's like, the way I'm talking there, I don't want FPL to affect me to that level. Like, I want to enjoy it and I don't want to be controlled by it. And only you guys know of your teams and the transfers you make and the hits you take or the hits you don't take. Like, what's going to bother you more? What's going to bring you more enjoyment of the game? And ultimately, I think that's the key. Like, I want to see you guys enjoy it. I want me to enjoy it. And I think we all have different ways of thinking. And we know, I think we learn sometimes the hard way as to what's going to help us enjoy the game more and what isn't. And often with me, it's like I get to a place of peace of a decision. And the worst thing about, I think, FPL for me is when I go back on a decision that I found peace in. And then I'm always just dwelling on the outcome of what I would have gone with. And I think that's my biggest lesson, probably. Like, just don't change your mind unless there's a really good reason to. And I suppose the Kenya benching wasn't a bad reason to change my mind, but equally the night before I'd made peace with like I'm not going to check any team leaks before the day. Like I'm going to lock in my team, I'm going to spend time with my family, and I'll find out later what happened. And I just didn't have the self control to not check a team leak, and that was my own fault. Like, and I've learned from that. I've been like, no, in future I'm going to stick to my plan if that's my plan, and I'm not going to like fall into the temptation, if you like, of potentially altering, what I'd found peace with. So that kind of links to the thing about releasing the shackles and, if you're someone that's like, I just need to take a few hits to enjoy FPL and not be so confined by something and be at peace with, I really like these transfers, whether the outcomes goes well or not, like that's what I want to do, go for it. If you equally know that taking hits, it's going to destroy you to see the players you've taken out do well, and you're on like, you've had like a massive sort of deficit difference in terms of those points, then obviously play a safer game. And this season, I've kind of been trying to get a balance of both, and I've been learning when I want to take hits and when that's going to be good for me, and when I actually need to just stick to plan or like roll the transfer and play the team, and actually that's going to cause me less stress and give me more joy over the weekend. So yeah, case by case basis. But there's the upshot of the sort of short talk in relation to fantasy football. Hope it's been helpful. Um, just quickly, sort of moving on to fixtures briefly, some sort of key things to target and the team selections moving into the next game week. The few key teams I want to name drop really are Arsenal coming to it to a great little run here, and I think. I put together a graphic here, but essentially, my two main guys for Arsenal I'm going to recommend are Declan Rice and Gabriel. For me, those are the two sort of almost essential players that you can have in your team right now, because I feel like they're both nailed. We'll come back to that in a minute. They're both nailed. They're both reliably ticking over. Saka's minutes being managed at the moment. I think with Timber, the problem is White might take a few more minutes off him now. White's starting to do a bit better, and you want three Arsenal players you can trust come the double game week in, well, most likely double game week in 26 or 27 for Arsenal. So for me at the moment, I'm on Gabriel and Rice, and I'm thinking, do you know what? Unless a player becomes an obvious pick for me, or if Timber starts, kicking off like he could do with the returns, I feel like I might even just wait till 26 and then come 26, if the likes of a Trossard just looks like a brilliant like punt, I might just slap him in and have fun. Otherwise, I don't think you can go too far wrong with Timber. He's going to play most games and he's so attacking when he's on the pitch. Like, I'm a bit scared not owning him. So I think Timber's probably my number three. Saka's the number four, but Madueke is proving he's getting minutes off him. So that's on the Arsenal assets just quickly. Villa, I wonder if they're going to drop off a little bit now after their result against Everton. I can't lie. They had a really poor start to the season. They've had a great run. Just wondering if, with this fixture on here as well, like, I think Rodgers is the one you get to tick you over and have some coverage, but he's not on pens. He's been overperforming his XGI a bit this season. Like, I'm not sure if he's the one. Bournemouth's another one I wanted to mention. Senesi. I feel like I'll come on to him in a minute. I'll come on, no, there's some spoilers for you. Senesi, I just think he's a DEFCON daddy, as Nightmare would say. Almost every game he gets DEFCON, but the fixtures are there as well. Outside of Liverpool home this week, where Liverpool have been terrible, it's a really nice run. And I watched the Brighton v Bournemouth game last night, and I thought Bournemouth actually defended better than they have done this season than what we've made out. So maybe they can defend, and maybe in some of these fixtures they'll actually go on a run where they nick a few clean sheets, and Senesi gets DEFCON clean sheet bonus and he smashes it. Tavernier would have been one I recommended, but it looks like he's got a hammer injury. But he really did prove the power of someone being on pens and set pieces last night in that game, and it made me think like I want that sort of player on my team. Which is why you just saw a sneak preview of Ndiaye for Everton, because he's back from AFCON now. Great fixture on Leeds at home's a brilliant entry point. I think Grealish has just gone out injured, which is people are saying could be a good thing for Ndiaye to play on the left wing, but it might mean less players to work with. But either way, like, he's going to be their talisman. He's also got DEFCON potential. Like, for me, he's the cheap Bruno Fernandes. And just having a player that's on pens in your team that has moments of magic in the locker, has a few routes to points and DEFCON potential, like, he's going to tick over for you at 6.2 mil. He's a bargain. So I really like Ndiaye. And he may well be coming in on the main team this week, which I'll talk you through very briefly. Chelsea fixtures, okay. Palace away this week, I say isn't the best. They've been struggling a lot lately. This run of five is incredible. Um, so for me, I'm saying I think because it's Palace away and because we know Palace can defend well and make it difficult for teams. I know they've lost Gabe, they've still got Lacroix, they've still got Richards, bunch of their key players, Henderson are still there. I feel like they could still make it difficult for Chelsea, particularly at Selhurst Park. So for me, I'm saying, look, if you need to, I think you can wait one more week on Chelsea assets, get more information. There's three Chelsea games between now and this really nice set of four West Ham at home onwards. Because yeah, two Champions League games and there's the Palace game in between. Scout the Chelsea assets. See, okay, if Palmer's Palmer plays a couple more games and scores a couple more goals and is looking dangerous, I think again Palmer will be very much on our thinking from West Ham at home. Like, he'll be scary not to own, and I think you'll be sad not to own him in that run if you can afford him. So keep an eye on Palmer. I think Enzo will prove to be probably the cheapest, best way into that team, sort of in terms of a player that's going to play most of the games and tick over. But he's maybe not as exciting with as much upside as a Palmer. If a striker like the Lap starts coming into minutes and form, there's options. I think Chalobah's looking like a good one at centre back. If Reece James's minutes are secure or Cucurella's looking more attacking down the left back side in the next few games, again, these are players you could look at. But I feel like one more week of info, and then going in with the best logic for West Ham at home. If you're not on Chelsea assets already, I don't think it's a bad shout at all. So that's one more sort of thing to mention. Talked about that. Talked about that. Talked about that. Talked about him. And finally, Semenyo. If you want a 1 week punt this week, I love the idea of a Semenyo. Home to Wolves. He's got a full rest in the Champions League tonight. At the time I'm recording this, new signing. He's going to be wanting a sort of baby Premier League goal. I just think home to Wolves is just a perfect entry point, and he's going to be the sort of player that might need to cook up a bit of magic to break down what could be a low block at times in the game. So, yeah, there's a few sort of bits of food for thought. A few in relation to that. One other one is James Garner, 29 DEFCON in his last match. Like that's incredible levels of DEFCON. I think he's got seven games in a row now. He's at DEFCON. That level of DEFCON gives you such assurance that he's going to get it the vast majority of the time. And with those Everton fixtures coming up, like who's to say you won't smack in a couple of screamers, get a couple of assists? Maybe the DEFCON potential goes down slightly if they're easier fixtures, but if he's getting 29 in a given game, like he's going to mop up a bunch in any game he plays, isn't he? So I think as an enabler, Garner's a really cheeky shout, and then you could just free up, the rest of your team to have more finances to get the likes for Palmer if he's looking good come 24. So in terms of the team selections then, so the Bible FPL team, to be fair, on paper it looks class. I'm actually tempted by Semenyo captain. Maybe I'm getting carried away. But with Haaland's, what, four blanks in a row now or something like that, but he scored a penalty against Brighton, but he's blanked a lot, hasn't he, recently? And again tonight in the Champions League. At the time we're recording this, because I'm sure you'll be watching this, I think, on the Wednesday. Either way, I might do a little poll on Twitter. Who shall I captain this week? I'm tempted by Semenyo. It sounds fun, and this is where I need to come to that place of peace. Like, will I actually be at a place of peace if actually no, I really want to go Semenyo, and I'll be at peace if Haaland smashes it. But I think, even as I'm talking, if Haaland gets 3 or 4 goals in that game, which he could do, even off form, like it's in the locker, and I went against it, that could just completely kill the rank just from one sort of slightly ambitious captaincy call. So it may be a case of this Haaland captain just for safety vice Semenyo. But I think I'll do a poll on Twitter and we'll see if you guys can persuade me to roll the dice on Semenyo. I'm tempted to bring in Doku this week, a Christian lad, perfect for the team. In for Foden, who played, started in the Champions League and could get reduced minutes. Some people think there's a chance he's benched. He probably starts, but I feel like Doku's a guaranteed start, given he was on the bench tonight. Pep said something weird about Doku not being available, but the fact he's on the bench, I'm not quite sure what he was chatting about. But it's put a slight bit of doubt in the mind. Like, is there a knock there that we don't know about? Either way, team looks strong. It could be a roll the transfer, or it could be let's slap in a spicy docu and free up funds to maybe get in a Palmer next week. But we'll have a think. Mateta could be an issue very soon, to be fair, so maybe I need to roll. But there's also, well, when Mateta gets sold before this game, he can all of a sudden, I'm scrambling, and maybe I'm chucking in Palmer a week early by doing Mateta down and a Foden up or something. I don't know. I want to. I don't think I'll be selling Foden before Wolves at home unless it's Doku, and I can still have Triple City to be fair. So we'll see what happens with all of that. But yeah, it'll be interesting how the weeks unfold with Mateta news. And then as for the main team, 43 points this week, up to 40k in the world. It's the main team, the Bible FPL team's on 12k, which is great. This one's gradually creeping up to 650k now. I'm pretty pleased with. Hall got a late review for maximum bonus, which was lovely. The defenders did bits, to be fair. Michele assist. He's just proving he's just a great asset for his value. He got Defcon again. Honestly, fantastic pick, Michele. If you're on wildcard, he's got to be in there as an enabler for me. And then there wasn't loads else to report. Like Bowen got Defcon again, what a legend. Haaland blanked, and then the bench. There was quite a bit of points on the bench. To be fair, could have been a bench boost week, but hindsight's a wonderful thing. I'd have never have bench boosted double Burnley v Liverpool and stuff. So yeah, team did okay this week on the main team. It continues to sort of tick up the ranks, which is nice. And then in terms of transfers and sort of linked back finally to the releasing the Shackles sort of encouragement I gave, I'm half tempted. Look, on one hand, I roll because there's a lot of decent players this week I could start. On the other hand, I don't know. I'm just in a bit of a weird mood this week, like to release some Shackles and make a few transfers. Like there's a few players this week I'd be starting, like the likes of Anderson and Michele or Hall, where I'm like, they're not optimal fixtures. Like I could see Villa scoring against Newcastle. I'm hoping obviously Bowen scores against Michele, so it's like it wouldn't be optimal to play both of them. Henderson against Brentford's a bit boring. I'm not playing McAllister against Bournemouth after he came off the bench the other week. Like he's getting chucked in a bin as soon as pass. And it could well be this. Like I've talked about Ndiaye. I think he is someone I'm almost definitely at this point bringing in. And I could just leave it there this week. But I don't know, for some reason I'm just like, I just want Mark Gay in my team. He's a strong Christian lad. On the Bible FPL team, I'm a bit locked out of him with the Triple City. Um, but I don't know, I'm just like, there's an obvious route in my team to get him. I could just do Hall to Gay, particularly now Burns back in training, like Hall's place a bit more under threat. Getting a Mark Gay, who I love. And then next game week, again, if I wanted to, I could take some hits. And I could get in Robert Sanchez for Chelsea for their perfect run of 4 games. Matoma after Fulham away, I think. I don't know. I love Matoma as a Brighton fan, but I just he's just a bit sporadic in terms of his returns, and he's not someone to sort of like maul a team with a brace or a hat trick. Like he's a great footballer, great dribbler, gets the odd assist, gets the odd nice goal, but he doesn't haul. And yeah, it's just like I feel like it's going to bother me not having some Chelsea coverage. So in the coming weeks, I may well end up doing like Enzo in. I have Sanchez in, so I have some Chelsea coverage. I'll have some, midfield and defensive coverage. I'll have, some City players in there. Triple City against Wolves this week, which is something I've been wanting. And then I'd also have the funds of those moves. This is next game week, by the way, to do like Bruno Fernandes in, who's a player that I've been wanting. I've currently got point three in the bank to do that, so I'm hopeful next week. Like if this week it basically would just be like it would be Gay and Ndiaye in, and then next week it would be Fernandes in with Enzo and Sanchez. And it's like, yeah, there's some hits knocking around, but if I come to a place of peace of like I just really want those players for those 2 game weeks, it sorts me out a bit more longer term with the players I want in the team and the structure I want and stuff. Like yeah, I need to come to a place of peace of like, actually, if is releasing the shackles going to be the best thing for my sort of mind and my enjoyment of the game, or is it going to bother me more if it goes wrong? And that's the place of peace I need to come to. And when I've made a decision, I've come to a place of peace. That's what I need to stick with, and that's my encouragement for you. Come to a place of peace and stick with it. Don't go back on what you've decided in your heart, because that's going to cause the most pain in FPL. And I don't want to see any of you feeling too much pain while equally remembering to try and hold the game loosely enough so that it doesn't shackle you and burden you like an idol. Because, yeah, I don't want this game to cause you that level of stress when someone's taken a penalty, because that's when actually the game isn't as fun as it should be. So, yeah, we'll leave the video there before it's too long. Like I said, I've very much been there, like Abu Bakar, many times myself. So, not from a place of judgment, completely see where he's coming from. But I'm sure all of us want to get to a place of FPL where we enjoy it to a point where, yeah, it's not taking over our lives to the point where this is going to wreck my weekend if it goes wrong. We want to hold it loosely enough so that it's, yeah, a fun hobby that doesn't ruin our lives. I'll leave it there for now before this video is crazy too long. But for now, yeah, please like, subscribe for more. Thanks for the support on the channel. Love you guys loads. Have good game weeks. Have green arrows. Catch you on the next one.